Okay, so hello everybody. It is 7:30 here in the East Coast of the United States. So I'm going to try to start this on time. My name is Marah Walsh, as many of you know. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started so that you know the format of this webinar. This is a webinar format, which means your video is not on, nor is your microphone. So you will not be seen or heard. You do have the option to communicate with me through the chat and the Q&A. Quite honestly, because I am presenting today and I'll be talking from start to finish, I won't be looking at the chat at all during the presentation. But afterwards, if you want a question addressed online, I suggest you type that into the Q&A mechanism on the bottom of the Zoom toolbar. If you're on Facebook, you could just type it into the comments and we'll deal with that as well. So I did try to incorporate as many answers to the questions that you all did during the registration. So I'm hoping there will be many of them taken care of, but feel free to jump in and put questions in the Q&A during the presentation and I'll get to them. So let's jump ahead and get started. So as I said, my name is Marah Walsh. I have been bringing you virtual tours for the last few years during COVID, and many of you probably have been on those tours, so you know the format of this type of presentation. I will be talking and there will be slides up and hopefully they will coincide and make sense for you. I do these travel talks every now and again just to educate people and have an open discussion about certain things that have to do with travel. And this one I thought was appropriate. We're going to talk about flights today because it's just been such a high priority for everybody in this post-pandemic travel environment. So this is a big disclaimer for everybody. I am a passenger, not an airline employee. I am here to share my experiences and my knowledge, but please note that I am sharing my experiences. Although I believe this information to be true, the information I share may not be the same information that an airline, a cruise company, or a tour company may share about their official information. But this is all a part of my experience, so I thought it would be helpful for everybody on the line. I see that there's a lot of people here that are traveling with me in the future, have traveled with me in the past, and also folks that I've worked with on their individual reservations for their own trips. So welcome everybody. And for those that are new to my group, welcome to you too. I'm hoping that the information I'm sharing will be relevant for everybody and you'll all at least take away a little bit of knowledge. Okay, so the agenda, what are we going to talk about today? So today we're here primarily to talk about flights. Obviously that overlaps a little bit with other pieces of travel, so it will digress a little bit here and there, but we are trying to, at least I am trying to be targeted with the conversation. Hopefully we'll all gain a better understanding of this part of travel so that we are less frustrated and we understand it better to make better decisions. Flying in this post-pandemic era, well, isn't that a funny thing for me to say, post-pandemic era? Actually, post-pandemic is not really the case because the pandemic is still here. We just have learned how to live with it. But that does not mean that when you're traveling, you don't run into COVID and the situations that have to be resolved based on traveling in a pandemic. But hopefully what we're going to do is increase your confidence about travel with knowledge. So we're going to talk about booking flights on your own, booking flights within a tour group or a cruise line, researching those flights, how are you going to book them, and then including flights on an existing package, upgrading your seats. What do you do if you experience delays and cancellations, and more? We're just going to jump into it and hopefully, like I said, really get some information out there for everybody. So as we enter this era of post-pandemic travel, the one area of travel that seems to cause a lot of anxiety and frustration is flights. They're more expensive than they've ever been before. They're less reliable than ever before. The customer service seems lacking more than ever before, and there seems to be more problems overall with this area of the travel business. But perhaps we can make this little bit better with a little bit of knowledge. Whether you're including flights in a tour package or you're booking flights for an individual or independent travel, and you opt to book flights with an organization or a cruise line, I'm hoping that the information that we share today will help boost your confidence with decisions and provide you with the information so that you can process it easier and make it understandable to be a little bit less frustrating. Okay, so booking flights on your own, not sure where to start, and how to book a flight for your trip, or even more, choose a destination based on a cheap flight. Let's get into this and analyze the data. Most of this data is not my data. I'm just sharing it with you based on what information I've learned from other experts out there in the industry. Best day to book a flight. Okay, so there's no single day of the week that's best to book a flight. You can find deals any day of the week since flight prices fluctuate with demand. Airlines might offer sales. They increase the number of seats on a route or even lower prices to match a competitor's. So there's no real pattern in what day of the week has the best deals. But these graphics give you an idea that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday yield slightly less expensive flight costs. Okay, so what's the best day to fly internationally? Wednesday and Thursday are the cheapest day to fly internationally. That said, there isn't a huge difference in price across the different days of the week. By leaving on a Wednesday, you'll only be saving about 12% compared to the most expensive day, which is Sunday, and compared to 24% difference between the cheapest day and the most expensive days to fly domestically. I honestly don't have a huge amount of experience in the domestic travel because I do most of my traveling internationally. So for me, this webinar is really going to be geared mostly towards international travel. Tips to find cheap flights any day of the week. Even though there's no day of the week that consistently has cheaper flights, there is a time period in which you should book before prices go up. Okay, again, this is the US slide, and a big disclaimer. This is just information that I've received from outside sources, but the cheapest data part if you're flying within the US is midweek, generally Tuesday or Wednesday. For economy tickets, Tuesday are about 24% lower than the peak of Sunday, which translates to about a $85 per person ticket savings. The same is generally true for business and first class travel. Saturday and Monday flights can help you avoid the Sunday rush. Saturdays and Mondays are the next cheapest after the midweek flights. The average airfare is about 13 to 15% lower on these days. So you kind of get a sense of where you might make those decisions if you have flexibility to do so. When to book? Well, I think one thing that everybody has to understand is that flights are available to purchase 11 months prior to departure. Even though, sorry, it jumped ahead, even though there's no day of the week that consistently has cheaper flights, there is a time period in which experts say we should book our flights for the best pricing. Scott's Cheap Flights, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that newsletter, but they recommend that you book 2 to 8 months out for international flights and 1 to 3 months in advance for domestic flights. This hopefully will avoid any price surges in the weeks leading up to your departure. Last minute flight deals aren't super common anymore, and you risk not getting a seat at all because your desired flight might completely sell out. But I'll say that from my experience, I found very good pricing at the 11-month out mark when flights just become available and they're just released. So this is a guideline, not a steadfast rule. I also check a flight price as soon as it becomes available. And if it's a good price, I scoop it up. And I think if it gets lower, I obviously watch that too. And I set alarms to watch that flight. And let's talk about setting a price alert. let a computer program do the work for you. Instead of checking flights and prices every day or weekly, set a price alert on the travel search engine of your choice, whether it's Google Flights, Hopper, Skyscanner, Kayak. They'll send you an email reminder, and if it's an app like Hopper, they'll actually put an alert on your phone when the prices drop, and some of them will actually let you know that it's time to buy. So those are really good tools, and I highly recommend them. I use them all the time. Rebooking if you find a cheaper flight. Most airlines have adopted more of a flexible change and cancellation policy, which is making it easier to rebook your flights to save money. First, you'll have to make sure that the original flight you booked has a change in cancellation policy. For most airlines, that applies to most domestic airlines, definitely, but except you should not book basic economy seats or basic economy service, because those usually do not come with the same change in cancellation policies that the other services come out with. So if you find a deal, you can cancel your flight and rebook it on the same airline or a different one to get a cheaper flight. Just be aware that you might only get a travel voucher or credit. So you should only use the option if you're fairly confident that you'll be flying with that airline again. Obviously, it's in your best interest to use that rebooking mechanism when you're staying with the same airline. For example, we got flights through United to go on a tour, and I bought them right at the 11-month mark, and then in about 4 months out they were way cheaper, so we went and rebooked them all, and we got quite a big discount on them. So just be mindful of that, and just because you've booked your ticket shouldn't mean that you stop looking at that fare and what's happening to it, and if it does go down for you. Oh, this word is like the key word in all travel, I think, flexibility. But certainly if you're talking about booking flights for yourself and you want to get the cheapest deal, flexibility is key. Knowing that flights are a huge part of a vacation budget, if you're looking to cut the cost of an overall vacation, and I'm talking about a self vacation or a family vacation, one that's not tied to a tour date or a cruise date, be flexible with your destination, your airport, and your dates. The golden rule of cheap travel and travel in general, as I said, remains to be flexible. Use these two great tools that I'm going to talk about, Google Flights and Google Flight Explorer, to see if there are cheaper places to go by leaving the destination blank when you search. Check nearby airports if you're set on a destination. Be flexible with the airport you leave from, be flexible of your destination airport, and use the calendar view to lower the prices on the destination. Consider the best day to book a flight, and the best day to fly is when it's cheapest, and that could vary depending on when and where you're going. I'm going to talk a little bit about this tool, Google Flight Explorer, because Google in general doesn't heavily promote this tool. So I think most people are not aware of it, but it's a great tool and it's really easy to find. You could just navigate to flights.google.com/explore. You can Google it and just Google Flights Explorer and you'll get it and pull it up. You can, again, enter your departure airport, leave the destination blank. You can use filters. You can say, nonstop flights. You can say whether you just want flights and nothing attached to it. And you can really explore some things. For example, this is a great use of Google Flights Explorer. I have points at a Marriott. I want to see where I might be able to use them because they expire in September. And I want to see all the places that I might get cheaper airfare because I'm trying to take advantage of these Marriott points and getting them before they expire. This really does hone in on some of those locations you may not even think about, and then you're able to utilize some of those points or some other some other perks that you might have. And then obviously, if you just are out there looking to travel, but you have no idea where, but you want to get out of town, this is a really good tool to assist you in that. Tools for finding the best deal. Here's a list of great tools to use when researching flights. The golden rule here is only use them to research. When you go to book your flight, always book directly with the airline. And we'll get into this more and more as the presentation continues, but it's important for you to know that these are research tools only. Good Flights and Google Flights and Skyscanner are two of my go-to flight tools to determine pricing. Google Flights will present the best options for most major airlines, and it's got a really easy interface to use. I always start there. Only because, I'm a creature of habit and I used Google Flights forever, but Skyscanner, I always double check my data with Skyscanner because Skyscanner includes a lot of smaller airlines like Southwest if you're flying inside the US, but if you're flying outside the US, they include a lot of the local airlines, the EU airlines, the African airlines. So a lot of the local airlines that Google Flights just doesn't look at in their algorithms. And Hopper is one of my favorite apps on my phone to use for tracking deals. I have the app downloaded. I put in the exact flight that I'm looking for, the exact flight. And what I mean by that is, if it's a flight from Miami to London and I want a nonstop flight and I want it on September 24th, I put it in exactly so that I don't get a huge amount of alerts and false data. I want exact data that I'm looking for. So I put it in, I let it continue to update me and tell me, stay true, wait a little while. And then it'll eventually say, I think it's time to buy. And this app tells you when to buy to the best of their data analysis. And I'll just make a note there that it's to the best of their data analysis. It doesn't mean that the airfare wasn't cheaper earlier or isn't going to be cheaper later, but to the best of their data analysis, they will give you that information. And let me tell you, from my perspective, it's always better than what I can do on my own. So I really think that the tool is really great to use. And as we said, we already touched on Google Flights Explore for those of you looking for destinations when you're really very, very flexible in where to go. So let's talk about booking direct with the airlines. When you book direct with an airline on an airline's website, you have more leverage when it comes to delays, booking changes, and cancellations. If you try to contact an airline with a question after having booked through an agency like Expedia or a tour operator, there's a chance you'll be directed back to that tour operator or online agency. This service can be subpar and frustrating at times because the agencies have already given over the information to the airline for booking, so they don't have access to it anymore. And the airline is not claiming it as their own or yours. So you're caught in this Bermuda Triangle where there's nobody that holds the accountability for your ticket. In some cases, you're directed back and forth to the airline and the third party, and all it does is really just frustrate the traveler. And even when working with a travel advisor, such as myself, always make sure the ticket purchase is connected to you as the person booking. I'll often work with a client and choose the best flights for them. I'll monitor the flights, but when it comes time to book, I use their name, their credit card, and everything that connects it to them so that if there is a problem, they can make the change. If they want to go in and do their seat assignments, they can do that. If they want to do upgrades, they can do that. And they hold all the benefits of the booker. So that's really important. And this is truly more and more of a challenge since post-pandemic travel. Before the pandemic, I traveled just as much as I'm traveling now. And we didn't have these problems before. We could easily navigate to an airline, change our seats, get upgrades if needed, move around, do whatever we needed to do, and it was no problem. But the airlines have far greater issues on their hands right now than what seat Marah Walsh sits in. So it's really important for us to understand how we can use the system better to control some of that on our own so that we're not frustrated and we can get things done. So many times a tour or cruise package may include the option to add flights to their package. And it's up to you whether you include flights in on a tour package or decide to book them on your own, whether using cash or points. I'll be speaking to my experience with the tour and cruise operators I work with frequently. A tour or cruise package may include the option to add flights to a package, and in many cases, the included flights offered may be free or at a very discounted rate, or they might bundle it in a way so it makes it seem more desirable to book straight through the tour operator. And in many cases, there are a lot of benefits to doing that. We'll get into that. Several cruise lines are doing this. As I said, they're bundling a free or buy one, get one free or a very discounted flight in the package to incentivize the client to purchase theirs, right? It's giving them the competitive edge. And just from a general speaking point from Girl Travel Tours, we've booked numerous cruises for clients on Norwegian and Viking Cruise Line for people who are flexible on destinations and timing, but can take advantage of these super deals with the flights. Let's analyze the positives and the negatives in booking flights with tour operators. Okay, so before we get into this, it's important to remember that flights are not available to book until 11 months prior. That doesn't mean that some tour operators and cruise lines don't include the price of a flight in with the initial purchase. It just means that that's when the flight actually becomes bookable, right? So some tour operators will allow a customer to purchase flights as part of their vacation package, whether it's 3 years out, 2 years out, or whenever it is. But they'll add the flights as they become available. So you'll see some of these tour operators up on the screen. And I know a lot of you on the call with me are going to Scotland and Ireland, and we're using CIE Tours International for that booking. Some other ones of you are going on the Halloween tour to Transylvania, followed by the AMA Waterways Halloween tour. So there's two. I'm just going to talk about those two right now because they speak to some people on the phone. But essentially, we've booked our tours, but we don't know yet what our flights will cost, right? So this is one way a tour operator deals with it. They sell the package of the tour, but then they say, okay, well, when 11 months comes out, then we'll talk about the flights and what that'll add to the package, right? And you can, at that point, either choose to add it to the tour company's package or book the flights on your own. There are companies like Gate One that I also book a lot of travel through and use them. They'll guarantee your air and your land price from a departure city listed on the website. So for example, it's very typical that a Gate One trip that you sign up for usually uses New York as the departure gateway. But once the flights become available at 11 months out, they'll contact you or me in this case, and they'll review the itineraries, meaning the flight pathways, and they will adjust the pricing based on the departure gateways and the pathways. But the client still has the say in how they want to get there, whether they want a direct route, whether they want connections, and they outline the price differences in that. So that's another way to deal with it. Now, these tour operators, they allow you to lock in flight costs well in advance of 11 months out, before flight rates they even exist. And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons with those tour operators who lock in flights well before they're available to the public and how they deal with them. So especially, I'm going to talk about Norwegian Cruise Line and Go Ahead Tours and EF Tours in this next segment, because I have a lot of travelers that are traveling under those tour providers, and it's really important to understand how flights work with that. So this is an old Girl Scout saying. I don't know. It's probably an old preschool saying. I'm not even sure. But in most cases, when dealing with a tour provider or a cruise line that includes the air cost as part of the package before 11 months out, you get what you get and you don't get upset, which means if you don't want to incur additional fees, you take what you're given and you accept it, right? And this is not for all companies, but certain for some. The two that I work with the most, we're going to get into those now specifically, which let's get into Norwegian first, because my Alaska trip is on Norwegian. I booked tons of independent travelers on Norwegian. They always have some type of a deal, which is either buy one, get one free airfare, or some type of bundle package that includes cheap airfare. So for companies like Norwegian that offer several deals, they are quite inflexible when it comes to flight choices. With the exception of traveling ahead or staying behind, which they do allow 2 days on either side, at no additional cost. You can add 2 days in the front, 2 days on the back, one the other, or you can travel the dates of the tour. That's fine. But Norwegian picks the flight times and the connections. You may get a very early morning flight or a late flight on your travel days. You don't get to pick your seats in most cases until they're ticketed, which is about 30 days prior. Some airlines won't allow you to pick your seats at all until you check in. Once Norwegian books your ticket and notifies you, you can then contact the airline, and if you're lucky, apply an upgrade or a seat change. If they don't allow you to do that, then you're still stuck with what Norwegian has purchased for you. And bookings are usually in the airline's hands until, like I said, about 30 days out. So let's talk about the pros and cons here. The advantages of doing a deal like this is the price. You cannot beat the price. You can lock in a price with a discount. The one good thing is you fly with those people in your cabin, but if you're in a group, say your group is 10 and you and your wife are flying together that in your cabin, you're guaranteed to fly with your wife, but you're not guaranteed to fly with your other family members who may be flying from the same departure gateway as you. So that is something you just have to be okay with and comfortable with. The airport transfers are included when you include your flights with Norwegian. The cruise ship will not leave without you. You know, if your flights are delayed or canceled, they're going to make sure they have your back. They're going to make sure that everything is copacetic so that when and if you arrive to the port, the cruise ship is there for you, or they get you to the cruise ship. Your air is covered by the Norwegian Cruise Line insurance. And if you have delays, obviously, I just said the cruise line won't leave without you. Now, some of the disadvantages: you have to accept the flight that's assigned. You may not get on the flights assigned until you may not get, you might not receive the flight that's assigned to you until about 60 or 45 days prior. So if you are antsy and you're looking to get that flight information, you have to be patient. You're not guaranteed to fly with your whole party. You are guaranteed to fly with the people in your cabin. And depending on the airline, you often cannot assign your seats or change your seats. Now, what I have found is that most American airlines like United, Delta, American, those major carriers, you are able to go in and change your seats. It's the non-US carriers that we seem to have more of an issue with, like Lufthansa, British Airways, and these carriers have agreements with our US carriers. So for example, United and Lufthansa are pals. They work in the same, they work within the same booking reservation. So when you book on United, Lufthansa might pick up the ride. So even though you've booked with United, the plane belongs to Lufthansa, so therefore you can't go on to United and pick your seats or move your seats because Lufthansa holds the ticket, and Lufthansa doesn't want to deal with you as a customer in terms of doing seat changes, and they just say, you know what, you have to wait till you check in. So sometimes those things happen, and it's frustrating. So what I'm hoping that is this knowledge of how it all shakes down is enough for you to get comfortable with your choices, right? And like I said, I mean, Norwegian, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages in my mind because the price cannot be beat. So at the price that you get for these these special flight deals, you have to kind of live with the inconveniences of maybe a connection here and there, and maybe not knowing what your flights are for a while, and maybe not being able to pick your seats or being able to move up to an extra legroom or something of that nature until much closer. And again, this is not the rule. I'm generalizing in a lot of cases here because every single airline is different and every single situation is different. I've been in the situation where I've had United and Lufthansa, and I've called Lufthansa over and over and over again. I've used my sweetest voice, and I've played dumb and I don't know, how can you help me? And I've beseeched them, and they've helped me eventually. Some people will call over and over again and they get no help. So it really just depends on what airline customer service rep you get, how helpful they're going to be that day, and whether they even know or not know whether they're supposed to help you or not. So again, it does change, but these are very good general rules. Okay, so this one is a big one because I use Go Ahead Tours and EF Tours a lot. Every year, they're one of my preferred providers. I really love their on-tour experience. They are great to work with, but it comes with a but. You have to understand their flight policies and be okay with them, right? So let's talk about the advantages and the disadvantages here. Well, let me go into the one thing before I talk about that. So one of the things about EF Tours and Go Ahead is that their airline tickets, again, are not locked in until 30 days. They may provide them to us. In fact, they provide them to each of the travelers at about 85 to 60 days out. But they're not ticketed for real, like they actually aren't ticketed with the airline until 30 days out. So you do have to wait until they're actually ticketed for you to be able to make any changes with the airline. A lot of the same things we talked about with Norwegian are going to apply here, but it is a little bit different. So I'll mention it. The advantages. Obviously, you're locking in pricing well in advance of the availability to the public. So, for example, the best examples of this is that whoever booked a Go Ahead tour before or during the pandemic, for after the pandemic travel, got flights at a very reduced fare, right? Because now, as we know, flights cost 2 to 3 times the amount that they used to cost. So you've locked in pricing that are better than you'd ever get now, right? And now the same, even if you're locking in pricing now for some travel in a month, for a few years in advance, we don't know what those flights are going to cost out. So it's always, kind of a good practice to say, yes, I want to include the flights, then it's locked in. And then whether you keep it on your account or not, that's a different story. But another advantage is you can fly with your whole group from the same city. So if we have 20 people flying from Philadelphia, Newark, or New York, or wherever we're flying from, they guarantee that all of those people will fly together on the same pathway, as long as everybody's booked well in advance of the, I think it's 135 days out mark where they process the flights. So that's a big advantage for groups to be able to travel together, especially when they're kids. With the EF product, most of those are teenagers, and we want them all to be traveling with us. So that's a big advantage. And even with the go ahead tours, when you're not a confident traveler and you're a new traveler, you want to feel comfortable that you're traveling with somebody who kind of knows how to do this, especially when it's your first time back to travel after several years of not being able to travel. And also if you're a solo traveler, like all of those really do play into effect. Another advantage, the airport transfers are included. Now, in EF and Go Ahead, they do allow you to buy the transfer if you do choose to book your own flights, and they are $30 each way. So you can easily have them added to your account if you decide to book your own flights. If delays happen, EF will get you caught up to the group. And these do happen. I've had it happen several times on several tours where we've moved on and the people have not arrived yet. And EF, with their own expense, will make sure that they get you to the tour. Obviously, if you book your own flights, that's a different scenario. You have to find the tour and get caught up on your own expense. The other thing I'm going to mention, another thing is obviously that the airfare is covered by EF, right? So the air days, the travel days are covered. Now, there is a workaround on this one too, because EF Go Ahead allows you to add insurance days for $20 a day. So if you do make your own flights, but stick with EF for their insurance, you'll just want to make sure that you add those extra days on it so that you're insured for the extra days of travel. And that even is if you go ahead or if you stay behind, you can even add those days for $20 extra a day. You can add that onto the insurance. The other big thing is that the flights and alternative flights that may be needed are covered by the COVID Care Promise if you bought EF Go Ahead flights. So for example, if you got sick on tour and you just really can't beat it and you can't get back on tour, you're just not well enough to continue traveling, EF will fly you home and they will take care of rebooking and charging all of the flights themselves if you book their own flights. So as you see, there's a lot of advantages in booking flights with a tour provider. However, there are several disadvantages as well. One, it's the same thing that if you don't have a lot of patience and you're waiting for those flights to come, you're going to have to practice your patience because you're not going to get your flights until about 85 to 60 days prior. And then, of course, you may not be able to access those flights to change your seats or pick more desirable service places in the airplane. So that's one thing. I think I covered all of that, but then let's talk about if you decide to book your own flights when using a cruise or tour provider. Here are some pros and cons on that one, and we'll talk about the advantages. Obviously, the biggest advantage is that you have complete flexibility in booking your preferred flights with your preferred airline carrier. You can book them when you want to book them. You can book the departure gateways that you want, the dates, the times, the itineraries. You can get the seats. You can book your upgrades. You can be in business class if you want. You can do whatever you want to do on your own, and you can control that booking. So that's the big advantage. As we said, the disadvantage is you give up any special deals offered, or you give up any kind of connection to the tour operator. Your transfers aren't included, and the flights aren't included in the tour company insurance. But as I said, EF does allow you to work with them on adding those things in if you'd like. So, I think that there's no right or wrong here. You certainly don't have a way that I'm not going to say you should go this way or you should go that way, but I will tell you some tips and tricks that I have when it comes to booking EF and I'll say EF Go Ahead. EF, just so everyone knows, EF is the parent company. They have many divisions under it. One is the EF student division. That's the kid one. Then they have EF Go Ahead. That's generally an adult or an all family, but generally adults. And then they have a college break. They have ultimate, they have all different types of divisions under it. I deal with the two, which is EF Go Ahead for my adult tours and EF student division for my multi-age group tours. So EF, what I would recommend is that you add your, when you sign up, you add your flights, right? Because it's not going to cost you anything at that moment to keep or take off the flights. But then at about 135 days, 100 days out, your group leader, me, will get the flight itinerary. I'll share it with everybody and I'll say, this is what EF has booked for you. If you can't deal with it, there's no way, I'm not doing this. It has 2 connections. I don't want 2 connections. Or there's a 6 a.m. flight. That means I have to get up. And I'll tell you, Go Ahead is notorious for early morning flights on the way back to the States. So that's just when they get their best deals. So it's notorious that you have very early wake up calls to come home. And some people just don't want that. Okay, so that's fine. It's your prerogative. You can then request changes and you can request them and EF will work on them. They have about, I guess, what is it? Maybe 20 days or so to go back and forth with you. And obviously there will be costs associated with those adjustments, and they'll tell you, okay, we'll do what you want. We'll use Delta. We'll give you a direct flight and we'll get you back at 11 a.m. instead of 6, but the change will be $420. You either say yay or nay. And before the 85-day mark, which is the what they call the tour finalization date, before that mark, we have to make a decision. So no harm, no foul. You could drop your flights at that point and say, I'm going to book them on my own, because you've already been exploring what those costs might be, or I can certainly help you explore what those costs might be. And then you make a decision. And then like I said, if you don't like them, we book your flights off on your own. We book your flights independently. And if you can live with them and you want to stay with the price quoted, we do that as well. So that's what I recommend for EF tours. Norwegian, as we talked about, there's no way to say, let me see what you have, and then I'll decide. It's either you take it or you leave it. You get what you get, you don't get upset. So those are 2 ways to deal with those providers. There's other providers like Viking that will give you an itinerary. And if you don't like it, you can go back to them and say, okay, I don't like this, I want to change it. And then they'll give you a price quote and you can change it if you want. Same thing with Gateway. They'll work with you on changing the itinerary, but of course it might have a cost to you. So that's sort of like the round all to book or not book with a tour provider. And if you have a specific tour you're on with me and you have specific questions that relate directly to that, we can deal with them offline, and we can deal with them with your personal situation to allow you to make the best choices possible. All right, let's move on to some other things that have to do with flights. Luggage. If possible, pack light. That's my mantra, of course, but I understand that some people just can't take a carry-on only. So if you can't take a carry-on only, book nonstop flights wherever you can. If you're really concerned about your luggage check, prioritize a nonstop flight or the least amount of layovers with really generous time on the layovers. So if you are, and again, it's just a luggage issue, because obviously bags are most likely to get lost in transfers between planes at connections, especially when there's tight connections. So that's really something to be concerned about in how you pack, or whether you check or take carry-on. I get it. Some people can't do carry-on only, but I certainly, I don't even want to say it aloud. I'm not going to say it, but when people take a carry-on, they are less likely to lose their luggage. I've even heard that some consider discount airlines. Like, I've never seen this before, but I saw this on one of the other travel blogs, is that apparently full service airlines are more likely to lose bags than discount airlines. And it has nothing to do with the airline service, but it has a lot to do with the fact that Discounted airlines tend to have more nonstop flights because they don't have as many flights. Large scale full service airlines have a lot more layovers because they have a lot more cities they do business in. So, that was an interesting perspective. I wouldn't use it as a booking decision based solely on that. But it was an interesting note that I read, so I thought I would share it. I have some people traveling in the next few months on a couple new airlines or airlines that are really specific to particular countries, like Iceland Air, I think it's called Norse is another one. They really do have a lot of direct flights because they don't have a lot of flights. So if you want to go to New York and fly direct to Iceland or Norway or even London, some of these airlines have direct flights, and they're much more discounted than a mainstream airline would be. So that's something to think about. Take pictures of your luggage and its content before you go. Some smart travelers even lay out all of their items on their bed before they pack, and they take pictures of it. So if the bag is lost, that helps them create a content record of what is lost. Use baggage trackers. Many airlines allow you to see the status of the bags in their app. I know United is doing that now really well. Delta's doing it. I know some others are doing it. And then if you're like me, you'll add an airline, an AirTag to your luggage as well. These are great trackers. I use AirTag, which connects with my Apple device. I know there are other trackers that connect with Androids and Google devices. But essentially you can track your bag at any time. It alerts you when you've left it behind. So it's a really good, very inexpensive insurance policy for your luggage and for your other bags. I actually put one in my backpack. I put one in my carry-on bag with wheels, and I put one in my travel vest, which we'll talk about the travel vest in a little while. Properly ID your suitcases on the outside and the inside. Put a nice good tag on the outside, but inside put a note: this bag belongs to your name, your address, your phone number, your email, so that if the tag on the outside gets ripped off or caught in the conveyor belts, you have another way to identify that bag. Check your bags in a timely manner. Experts say that last-minute baggage check-ins can lead to greater chance of trouble and getting them lost in the mix. Always ask when checking your bag if you have to recheck it at any point of a connection. These rules vary based on country and on the carrier, the airline carrier you book through. So always ask. I am a very seasoned traveler. I still ask, is everything, and like I said, I do take carry-on, but a lot of times I'll take donations or t-shirts or whatever I have to take to the destination. Sometimes they're gifts, whatever it is. And I'll check that bag. I always ask, are these checked through to Budapest? Or, when I go through Heathrow, do I have to recheck my bag? Be smart about that and just always ask. It's better for them to say, no, than that one time you didn't realize and you get off and make that connection and your luggage stays in the airport where the connection was. And I always want to note that airlines are well aware of travelers' special needs, such as CPAP machines and other medical devices that may be coming on the airplane with you. But I always recommend calling the carrier that you're flying on, find out exactly how they want to handle it, and deal with it directly with their requirements. Because in many cases, a CPAP machine does not count as one of your bags that you're carrying on the plane, but in some cases they may. So just be mindful of that and really check anything you need. And this is just another note. It has nothing to do with luggage, but if you feel as though the travel day is going to be excruciating for you, and you know that day is going to cause you a lot of anxiety, when you're on the phone with that airline company, just also ask them for transfers. If those transfers are going to help you get from point A to point B in a better way for you. If you are slower, or if you have mobility issues when you're dealing with luggage, that's always an option, and all airlines will help you with that. They'll even get you from connection to connection, and it will be much more timely, and also with less anxiety and stress, and certainly for those that have mobility or medical issues of any kind. Okay, let's check your flight status before you go to the airport. So these are things that will definitely help take down the anxiety level and also help you become more prepared. You should always sign up for the airline's free text alerts on the status of flights when you buy your ticket or when you gain access to your ticket. You should also download the carrier's app to your phone so that you have it on a mobile device once you are in transit. You can also put your airline and flight number directly into a Google search bar to retrieve the status that way. That's also handy for friends and family who are checking in on you or need to pick you up from the airport. I know sometimes I've done it myself. I can't get into the app because the app is stuck or I'm not able to get it. So I just literally put it into the Google search bar and you get the same information. You can also check with websites like FlightAware to track the larger flight trends across the country, seeing where your flight's coming from, seeing what weather issues are happening, seeing if there's any mechanical issues going on. So those are really good for obsessed travelers like myself. So let's talk about getting through the airport efficiently. Dress comfortably and organize all your essentials when you're flying. Pack your bags, keeping in mind that you can only have one piece of luggage and a smaller carry-on item with you on board the plane. Make your bags identifiable by tying a ribbon or putting an identifiable name tag on them. Some people use colorful or unique bags so that they can identify them. There's even covers for bags now, nylon covers that you can use so that it's very identifiable for you. Make sure the items you'll need on the plane are in the under the seat bag, as opposed to the one that you're going to put up above your seat. This can save you time, confusion, and if you're on the inside, a struggle with your neighbor, so that you're not dealing with getting up and down and having other people open cabinets for you. So when you pack liquids, make sure they're in your carry-on, such as lotions, shampoos, body oils, and all that stuff. Make sure they're in 3 ounces or less. Keep them together in plastic Ziploc bags. And remember the 3-1-1 rule. That means the containers must be 3 ounces or less. It's actually 3.4, but 3 ounces or less. Store in a 1 quart liter Ziploc bag, and only 1 Ziploc bag per person. Arrive at the airport about 3 hours before your international flight scheduled departure time. Now, I say that even though the counters aren't open 3 hours ahead of time, but this is in case of delays getting to the airport, delays getting from wherever you're going to the actual check-in counter. And obviously, if you don't have to use the check-in counter, if you can use a kiosk, it eliminates any of that anxiety getting through security to your gate. Find the check-in counter for your airport. These should be indicated by signs outside the terminal. There's usually a sign of the airline, so you know exactly where to get dropped off. Get in line and wait until you're asked to come forward. Also, keep in mind, on the airplane, you may only have that 1 piece of small luggage and 1 smaller carry-on that goes under your seat. So have those bags designated as which ones you're going to carry, and have your ID in hand. Show the agent your ID when you're asked to do so. If your luggage is getting checked, the agent will tag it. Take a photo of the luggage tag that is given back to you, the receipt, so that you have it, because oftentimes a customer service rep will just tack that onto your boarding pass or your passport, and it might get lost, and then therefore you don't have the receipt to get your luggage. Ask for a printout of your boarding pass always when you check in. It's always good to have a printout in case that phone doesn't make it or the charge is gone, but it's always good to have a printout. If you do not have bags to check, you can bypass this part of it and you can go right to the gate after going to the kiosk. Sometimes when traveling with a group, you're on a group ticket, which prevents you from checking in online ahead of time because everybody would have to have done the same, and it's necessary to go to the counter to actually separate out and check yourself in. Excuse me. Make your way through security checkpoints assigned to your departure gate. You know, most of the time, all the time, there'll be a security worker there that'll check your boarding pass again and send you on further. Some people get very frustrated because they're putting their boarding passes away, then they have to bring them out, then they have to put them away, then they have to bring it out. So just have a spot that you always know where your boarding pass and your passport are so that you're not flailing in and out of your whole bag every time you have to do it. You'll go through an X-ray machine, obviously, and a metal detector. You'll put all your bags, your metal objects, and your shoes on the conveyor belt. If you have Ziploc bags, you'll want to take them out of your bags and you'll want to put them in a different carrier bin. If you have a laptop or tablet, all those things come out as well, and they go through with separate bins. You'll have to take off a jacket or a sweatshirt, anything with a zip up or an open front. Those have to come off too, and they're screened. You'll have to remove all metal objects like keys, jewelry, belts, anything that might set off the machine. You'll have to remove your shoes and place them on the conveyor belt. This is, of course, unless you have TSA pre-check, then you don't have to remove your shoes or take out your liquids. If you get confused or you're unsure of what to do, just ask the security worker there politely, and they'll tell you exactly what to do, and you just follow the directions. It is confusing sometimes because some airports dictate certain things where other airports don't. I generally do the same thing whether they ask me to do it or not, which is generally taking my electronic device out, putting it in another carrier. Sometimes they'll say, you don't need a carrier for your bag. Okay, that's fine. But, you know, in one airport you do. So I always err on the side of caution, and the agent will certainly let us know what we're doing right or wrong. If you have any metal body parts, I had a hip replacement, I had a knee replacement, I have some kind of screw in here. I don't have any of that. But if you do, be prepared for a full body pat. Once they're through, just make sure you go back and you pick up your items that went through the conveyor belt. It's inevitable that the person that gets pulled aside and gets distracted and they're thinking of other things are the ones that forget some of their items on the conveyor belt. So just double check, stop, think, make sure I have everything, and then move on. Know that you're now in the secure boarding area, and your gate number is usually indicated on your boarding pass, but if it isn't, there are monitors all over the airport, and you can look at the departure monitor for your gate number. Go straight to the gate. Don't stop and have a drink. Don't stop and eat something. Go straight to the gate, because many airports have another pass through where you have to go through another security check, and in many cases the line there is long as well, and it can really delay your time to get to the gate. So what I always suggest is go to the gate first, know where you are, and then go back and get something if you want to drink or eat or something. Yes, you're not going to be eating at the finer airport restaurants or fast food places. You're going to be eating more at a quick serve kind of place, but it's still better than missing your flight, right? So go straight to the gate and then go back and get something that you want. Obviously at this point, you're waiting at the gate till your boarding group is called. On your boarding pass, you'll see that there's a number on it that will indicate your group number. They usually have from 1 through 8, 1 through 6, depending on the airline. And they will allow, obviously, like special services to board first, and then you go in order. You can certainly huddle around the entrance like many people do, but just be mindful to stay out of other people's way while they have the right to board, and board when you are when you're called on it. I always say also, when you're going to the airport, have an extra portable charger ready for you, because sometimes you're not able to get a plug when you're in the airport, and sometimes on the plane you're not able to get a plug either. So it is beneficial for you to have the extra charger, the portable chargers for your phone if you are attached to your device and want to use it during transfer. Let's see, where did I leave off? Security, pre-check. Okay, so when you're finally called to go in, you want to find your assigned seat, place your luggage in the overhead bin. If you have a smaller bag that you'd like to hold on to, simply put it under the seat in front of you. This should be the bag where your essentials for flight, your flight are, like your earbuds, your snacks, your pillow, anything that your gum, anything that you want to access during the flight, your chargers, they should be in the small backpack or whatever bag you're going to put under your seat, so that you don't have to flail, excuse yourself, get up, open a overhead bin and go through your luggage and get what you need. Just think about all of it before you pack. And then, of course, once you settle in, it's time to enjoy your flight. Okay, so once you've found your assigned seat and you put your luggage on over the head, like I said, actually, this is just a duplicate slide in the sense that this is about onboarding and what I just talked about, which is, being prepared to have everything situated so that when you are finally on board, you don't have to bother a lot of people, and you're ready to hunker down and do the best you can with enjoying that the flight. And in many cases, we're talking about international long flights. So just be prepared. You'll be much better off. And then, of course, if something were to happen, and sometimes even though we're very prepared, things happen and they're out of our control. Here's where we have to work out and bring those 3 things that are in our luggage, which don't take up any space, which is patience, flexibility, and kindness. This is where we really have to hunker down and contain ourselves and deal with these things. But let's talk about ways we can alleviate some of the stress and the pressure caused by flight delays and cancellations. If you learn that you have an issue while you're at the airport, head fast as you can to the airline agent's desk and get ready. Oh, sorry, I just popped ahead. And get ready to multitask when you're in line. Fast is the key word here. As you can imagine, if something happens to a flight, all the people on that flight have the same objective, which is as quick as they can get rebooked, right? So it's going to make a difference who arrives first. It's first come, first serve. Positioning yourself close to the desk can pay off very well. Then I also would recommend calling the carrier while you're waiting in line. Depending on your spot in line, it might be faster to get through on a call center than it is to wait in line for the person in front of the line. My big example of this is one time I even knew before going to the airport that my flight was canceled and I was going to miss my connection. Regardless, I drove to the airport while I was on the phone while I was on the wait, the whole time on the phone. And I ended up, my airport, Philadelphia, is about 45 minutes away. I got to the counter and I drove because I didn't know if I was going to drive home. I parked, got to the counter, still on hold. And the person picked up the phone no, I'm sorry. The person I got to the counter and I talked to the counter before the person picked up the phone. So don't count on one way or the other. Make sure that you're covering all your avenues and do whatever you can. Another tip is that if you use the non-domestic number to get through to that airline. So for say it's Delta, call the Canadian Delta number to get through, because chances are if your flight's delayed in the US and not in Canada, the Canadian number is going to get you through a lot quicker, and they are the same call center and they can deal with the same problems. So just be an out-of-the-box thinker and try to get through as best you can with any agent you can possibly do to rebook. If you also, if they have self-serve kiosks, you can scan your boarding pass and enter your record locator number, and you may be able to see updated trip information there. From there, sometimes you can also switch your flight and print a new boarding pass without ever having to go to the desk or talking to somebody on the phone. Another way that people suggest is if you are really struggling with getting a good result, many suggest that you use social media to your advantage. Not all customer service teams are as helpful as they should be when you're trying to make phone calls. But what we have found is that, social media platforms like Twitter are a great way to get connected with an employee fast, because most companies don't want they don't want to have a bad social media presence. So many times I've heard where people have been very successful using social media to connect with an agent behind the scenes. I keep going back to this, but of course your attitude has a lot to do with how things will go once you get to that agent, and how much you research and you're prepared for alternative routes is also really good. Whether you're dealing with an agent in person or over the phone, your kindness will make a huge difference to them. Obviously, they're dealing with a lot of people who are going through the same thing as you are, but if you're willing to work with them as opposed to against them, you'll get much further in the process there. It can help to come prepared to offer your own suggestions on potential other routes or other options that you might have. So you might look ahead if you're going to miss a connection in Amsterdam and see where another flight might get you to your endpoint, or what happens with that. And coming with a little bit of suggestion might help them troubleshoot it as well. So obviously, if you've booked a flight before this webinar and accidentally booked it through Expedia or another third-party site, you'll have to deal with them when and if you have a cancellation or a problem. But as we said, if you book direct with the airline, you have a much better chance of dealing with your rebookings, your cancellations, and all of that, because the airline will identify you as the booker and be able to speak with you directly. So, no matter how prepared we are, we want to expect the unexpected. Keep a level head. In most cases, you should be able to board a suitable alternative flight and start heading to the right direction pretty soon, even though it feels like forever to get the resolve you're looking for. If you're traveling on a tour, a cruise, or have a transfer waiting for you on the other side, you want to alert the tour operator or your group leader, me, of any flight changes, because that will affect the plans we've made for you as you arrive. So also, whose fault the delay is or the cancellation is makes a big difference in what kind of compensation or what you can expect. If you've missed your connection and the fault was your own, obviously the airlines aren't required to help you at all. So any assistance you receive is going to emerge from like the goodwill of an airline employee that you're dealing with. But most of the time, the airline is at fault. So let's review what we could do at this point. So missing a connection with the same airline. If you miss your connection booked with the same airline that you were on for your first flight, and the issue is due to a delay or takeoff or something of that nature, it's the airline's responsibility to rebook you for the next available flight. If that's not until the next day, the airline should book you with another airline or offer you overnight accommodations or a voucher for meals. If your connection was missed due to weather, the airline should do the same, just minus the room and the food. Weather affecting cancellations and delays, they don't have to give you anything in terms of accommodations, but they do have to rebook you. Where if the airline has a mechanical issue or something of that nature, then what you get, the benefits you get from the airline are much greater. But be aware, you know, although it's standard practice, airlines aren't required by law or industry regulations. So again, it pays to be nice. If you are kind and you are persistent, you know, I think that you can result in getting better treatment than if you are abrasive in this altercation. If the connection is with another airline waiting at the airport, if your connection is with a different airline than what your first flight is, the airlines aren't obligated to assist you with making it on time to that second carrier. And generally, they don't do much in the way of helping. So obviously that's another thing to think about in terms of booking. If you stay with the same carrier and they manage the flight from start to finish, they are much more responsible for helping you rebook and getting settled when things do go awry. Let's see. The best advice I can give to you is to make sure when you're booking your flights, you know, to give plenty of time between each leg of your journey and to get a sense of the airport's layout so that you know how to get from point A to point B quickly during those connecting flights. You know, I keep saying this, but remember the 3 Ps in this is be patient, be polite, and be persistent. With respect to dealing with the airlines, it's pretty much that is your secret recipe for getting as much as possible out of the result of any problems that might incur. Be prepared before you take off. You know, taking a couple of steps so that you're ready to handle missing and connecting flights. It doesn't require a lot of forethought. The first and most obvious is getting traveler insurance. The moment you book your flights and your vacation, this can lessen the painful financial pinch. I know that a lot of people never even thought of travel insurance in the past, but certainly post-pandemic and during the pandemic, I don't recommend anyone traveling without travel protection. I know, and I mean protecting the travel part as well as the medical part, right? Because most travel insurance, they come in 2 parts. They protect parts of your travel and they also protect you as a person. You really need to make sure that both of those are protected. If you don't understand travel, we should do a whole nother webinar, honestly, on travel insurance and the importance of it and how you book it and the options available. But if you are interested in knowing what's best for you for your particular travel needs, feel free to reach out to me. I have become very well versed in this. We sell a lot of travel insurance to our clients, and we certainly are mindful of what policy plans work best for people. So The other thing in the sorry, I digress. The other thing in the be prepared before takeoff is, I stated this in the other one, which is, bring your essentials in your carry-on that you may need if your luggage were to get lost, right? An extra set of clothes, toiletries, those things will help you. And then, so the other thing is, if you are, if you are unexpectedly detained in any way, receipts are very important when it comes to travel insurance. I digress so much that I forgot what I was supposed to be talking about. Keep all your receipts for any purchases that happen as a result of travel interruption or luggage delays or any of those things. So your receipts are what is going to be able to be used for reimbursement in your travel protection. And then note that for airlines only pay for reasonable expenses, which means, they'll pay for a meal or they'll pay for something that's reasonable, but they certainly aren't going to pay for your alcoholic beverages or your expensive meals or an extravagant hotel stay. Try to avoid vouchers. If you're denied boarding, and you should not volunteer your seat to exchange for perks or for vouchers. If you do, you could be giving up the right of any additional compensation. Of course, the airlines make a compelling enough argument. It's absolutely worth it to you. So for example, when you sit there and they say, okay, we'll give you $200 to step aside, we'll give you $400 to step aside. At some point, their offer is good enough for you to take, and certainly at a value of what you'd, of something that would be worthwhile to you. You just have to make sure that if it is that voucher, that you're going to be able to use the voucher in the future. So just make sure that you are agreeing to something that you understand. If luggage gets lost or damaged, well, we should be pretty prepared, right? Because we've prepped the whole way to make sure that we have everything under control. Scope out other spots at the airport. If your suitcases aren't on the designated pickup carousel, check the nearby carousels. If you don't see them there, check the airline baggage office. This is also a good time to put those aforementioned tracking apps to work. So whether you're tracking it from an airline app or your own AirTags, start to look for your baggage. And of course, if you still don't find it, report your issue and fill out the form at the airport. If your bags haven't shown up, let the airline know and be specific and write clearly and neatly on the form. Take a picture of the form so you know what you've handed in. Many times airline personnel will explain that the luggage has been located, but will be delayed until the next flight. If you have the time, wait. If you don't, fill out the appropriate lost luggage forms at the airport. What should I do if my flight has been canceled or delayed? Let the airline deliver your bags. If any airline can locate your suitcase, but it's going to be hours before they arrive, make sure the reps have the address where you'll be and use the airline's delivery system. If you're on a tour where you're moving, keep in contact with the reps at the airline, keep them up to date as to where you're staying tonight, where you're staying tomorrow, and really keep on top of it, because obviously out of sight, out of mind, there is a lot of luggage in those back rooms, and you want to make sure that they're dealing with yours as much as possible. And as I said, keep all your receipts. That way, you have them to claim when you need to claim for interrupted or lost luggage. Let's see. Okay, so if your bags are damaged, if you see your luggage is damaged while still at the airport, report it then. The airlines aren't required to pay for damages to items caused by improper packing or something you've done. However, They will cover, like they don't cover fragile items, electronics, cash, perishables, or anything that you shouldn't be, that you shouldn't be putting in your check bags anyway, but they are liable for damage to wheels and handles and straps and things like that. So it's not a bad idea to take a look at your luggage when you pick it up from the carousel and make sure that you've noted the damages and reported it with the airline. Okay, so after all of that, we've made it. Welcome to your destination. Collect all your belongings, proceed through the passport control and customs, and retrieve your luggage at the baggage carousel. Meet your driver or be on your way and have a wonderful time. Here are some things that are connected with flights that I think you should know that might just be helpful for you. Avoid jet lag. Get plenty of rest before your trip. Schedule long sleeps for at least a week before your trip. Stay hydrated. Drink a ton of water, like 64 ounces a day or more. Use the electrolyte packets for a few days before you travel and every day while you're on your trip or on tour. The ones I like are called Drip Drop. They are on Amazon. I use a half of each of the packet, with a large bottle like this. This is like one of those 20 ounces and I use a half of a packet, and then my next 20 ounce, I use another half. I swear by them. I think that they not only keep you hydrated, but they keep a great boost to your immune system. Along with the electrolytes, take supplements if it works for your body. Keep yourself healthy, your immune system high, and ready to be able to travel so that you are the healthiest you can be. Try to sleep on the plane if it's nighttime at your destination and you have to sleep overnight. If you can't sleep, rest. Try to avoid marathon movie watching. Give your eyes a break. Use earbuds with soothing music to calm you and take your body down to a resting standpoint. Some people choose to arrive a day or two early before a tour or a cruise starts to get their body acclimated. You can do that as well. But if you are arriving the day of a tour and you have that day to get acclimated, plan a walking tour upon arrival and keep your body moving until the evening of that day one. I always say if you can make it to 8:30 or 9 o'clock, go land yourself in bed and sleep through to the next day, which is awesome. You'll wake the next day ready to go so that you can be prepared for your tour or your cruise. My tips and tricks, right? So now that we have covered how to book flights, what to do while flying, and if issues should arise, and how to best navigate a travel day, I'll share what makes it easier for me on these days. Let's face it, these are the hardest days of the trip, but with proper preparation and packing, a lot of patience, flexibility, and kindness, we will land with a smile and be ready for our next adventure. So here are some tips and tricks that might help you out. Let me see if I got through them all. Let's see. Okay, so shortcuts. There's several options and programs available nowadays that get you through the airports quicker. The two most popular for Americans are TSA PreCheck and Global Entry. Global Entry includes TSA PreCheck as a feature if you purchase Global Entry. So it allows you to get through security quicker when leaving the US, this is PreCheck, and allows you to skip the long custom lines when returning from the US, that's Global Entry. So TSA allows you to forego the taking off of the shoes and taking out the liquids and some of the other things like being scrutinized, right? They'll get you through. And there's usually a TSA PreCheck line and a regular line, and the TSA PreCheck line is often shorter. You get through much quicker. Global Entry always is shorter. On the way back into the United States, instead of taking out your passports, waiting in the long line where you have the snake of the line back and forth, you literally walk up to the machine, put your face in front of the machine, and you're good to go. So I really believe that if you travel enough, those two tools are really great for you. Okay, so here are some items I use to keep myself organized while navigating airports. Most important to me is to organize myself in a way where my valuables, my documents, and my essentials are all accounted for. I swear by this Smarty vest. It's what's on the left, and it shows like the illustration of the pockets in the picture underneath. I wear it every time I fly. It has multiple pockets, and I keep my essentials in the same pocket every single time I wear it. So I know my passport is here. I don't even have to open the vest. I can feel it. I know that my paperwork is here. I know that my phone goes here. Every single time I put the information back in the same pockets. I make it easy for my brain to recall where everything is, so that if I do get flustered, if I'm pulled out of line, if I have put myself through a way to get off track, I know all of my essentials are there. Another great thing about this vest is that when you go through security, I remove the vest as a whole, I fold it inside out. Everything I own that's essential and that's important is in that vest, and it's on the conveyor belt. I don't have to say, oh, where's my phone? Oh, where's my tablet? Where's my passport? It's all always in the same spot. So it's really important, instead of having a bag that you're flailing in and out of, trying to get all your documents, figuring out, did I put them all back? Do I have them with you? Have a system in place for you that works for you, whether that's a money belt, whether it's travel pants, whether it's a multi-pocketed vest or jacket. Make sure you have your organization set so that you are not going to run into any problems with any of your items, losing them or leaving them behind. So do yourself a favor, get organized before you go, and you'll be way more organized through the whole travel journey. Your travel essentials, be prepared with the correct documents. You want to have a valid passport, which means one that is good for 6 months past your return date. You want to have your original copy of your vaccine card, yellow fever card, whatever it is that you need for your travels. You want to have a credit card to be able to use abroad or on your travels. You want to make sure that that credit card has no foreign exchange fees. And if you are looking to get a new one because you don't have one with no foreign exchange fees, there are some that are out there that have no annual fees. The Bank of America one that I have up there, there's a traveler's card that is great. It has no annual fees, no foreign exchange fees. You'll want to take a debit card with you, because a debit card, you'll want to make sure you know the PIN. So go and test that debit card before you travel, and make sure you can get $10 out of that ATM, because a lot of us have the cards, but we never put them in ATMs anymore because we're using them differently. So you'll want to make sure that they actually work in the ATM, your PIN works, and you can get local currency from an ATM by using that card. Luggage. Find the right luggage for you. A hard case with 2 swivel wheels on each corner make it very easy to navigate airports, hotels, trains, buses, and all your travel, right? That one suitcase becomes, it changes from being a burden to being an ease of not even realizing it's there. I use a backpack with a wide strap on the back for my second smaller bag. It is very easy to put it over my suitcase handle that has the wheels, and it allows me to be hands-free with my carry-on and no additional baggage weight on my body, my neck, my shoulders. So I prefer that, but certainly just figure out what works for you, and make sure that it is helping the travel situation and not hurting it. So for example, when I say that, the old-time luggage where you have to drag it, even though it has 2 wheels, it becomes very cumbersome, the weight and the adjustment to your body that has to happen with that all of the time. So do yourself a favor, get the right equipment, make sure you're prepared, and and have everything that you need to travel efficiently. So carry-on sizes, I thought I'd put this in because a lot of people ask this. So just note that on most US airlines, the carry-on that goes overhead needs to be 22 by 14 by 9. The personal item that goes under the seat needs to be no more than 18 by 14 by 8. Those are sized in the US. You have to check your airline carrier. You can't assume that that's going to be the case for every airline. So just please, just be mindful of that. Okay, so hopefully we've learned something today and we feel more confident about flights and travel days. And now I think you're ready to see the world, whether it's on your own with your family and friends or traveling with a group. If you are yearning to travel, don't wait. Get something on your calendar and get out there and see the world. Okay, here's my shameless plug. I have a passion for travel and sharing it with others who have the same interests. I believe that travel expands our minds. It creates unity. It reduces stress and anxiety. It makes us more resilient. It teaches us appreciation, and it keeps us young. In the past year, I have helped more than 75 families and friends book independent travel, including custom tours, cruises, and joining existing tours. I've assisted more than 40 others find a group that works for them that was not my group. And I've taken more than 200 people on tours with me in the last 12 months. It's my passion to connect you with the right itinerary and travel experience. If you have something in mind, just let me know. Okay, my future tours. These are my group tours. As you see, I have about 5 more on the calendar for 2023. They are all full and or on the wait list, but by all means, if you're interested in any of them, reach out to me and let me know, because it happens all the time where people drop off of a tour and then we do pick up somebody from the wait list. All of these tours are available on my website, which is girltraveltours.com. This is a look at 2024. We have a couple on waitlist, but there are many trips that are available still and have space available. So if you're interested in any, reach out to me. We can talk about it. Some of them still have some specials going on. The Scotland and Ireland has a special this month. It's a 5% off special. The River Cruise has a special right now. I believe that's, I think that's another week that special has. The Halloween in Transylvania and the River Cruise. And then in 2025, I just opened the Costa Rica tour, which has a special for another week. And then some of the other tours are going to be opening real soon, and you'll see them come on my calendar as well. But by all means, if you're interested in traveling with me and my groups, please feel free to reach out. And if you're interested in traveling on your own, but would love assistance or help or some expertise, I am here to help you, and I would love to make that happen for you. So that leads me into the Q&A, and I cannot believe it's 9:01 because I made this deck. I even said to my daughter over dinner, I said, I didn't time it. I have no idea how long it's going to take me, but I hope it's going to take me an hour. And she chuckled and she was like, oh, Mom, but here we are. Perfect hour. It's almost as if I orchestrated it to be that way. So I've tried to incorporate most of the questions asked into the registration that you guys asked from the registration form into this presentation. But one of the big questions that I didn't address that is still pending, even though it wasn't one that a lot of people asked, is about COVID safety and protocol. The world has really dropped its COVID restrictions, and most tour companies have dropped their requirements for vaccines at this time. But some tour companies still recognize that people are still contracting COVID while traveling, and it still impacts travel. These tour companies like EF Go Ahead Tours still honor a COVID care promise to their travelers and stand by them if they need help, if anyone is to get sick. So just be aware of that. I always say to my travelers before we go, when we go on a group trip, test yourself before you go. It's not required, but it certainly is a responsible thing to do, to know that you're going into a group COVID negative and you're not bringing any illness into the group that would spread. Because as we do know, COVID is a fast spreading illness, even though some people get it and some people don't, and it makes no rhyme or reason, but it certainly does spread. And, you know, that all goes back to my whole immune system boosting and being super on tour ready. And I really do believe the more on tour ready you are, the more your immune system is built up before you go, the better off you'll be, not only to enjoy your tour from a physical standpoint, but also prevent you from potentially contracting any illnesses while on tour. And that's obviously not, it's not a rule. It's not a golden rule. It's just, it just helps. So, you know, some people have immune issues and they're just going to be more susceptible than others. But if you can boost your immune system in any way before you travel, I highly recommend it. So let's look at some of the other questions that have come in during the event and see if I can answer any of them. Now, I'm going to be looking over here, which is off screen right now, because I have two monitors, and the one monitor with the questions is over here. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth to see. But so a lot of the questions that I'm reading have been dealt with. So I'm not going to read them again. I'm just going to kind of skip over the ones that haven't been dealt with so that I can move on. Oh, so Nancy, this is an interesting one. If you rebook on the same airline when the price drops, do you risk losing your seat assignments? Well, here's something. If you've paid for an upgrade of seats and you rebook, yes, you do risk losing them. It has to be obviously a mathematical equation that's going to be in your favor for you to do this. But what I often do, if I'm doing the rebooking, is I book the second before I let go the first. And I do this on the phone with an agent. I don't do this online. I do this on the phone with an agent, and I say, okay, let's rebook the second one before we let go of the first, just to make sure everything works. And then we slide the booking back in. You may have to adjust pricing for upgraded seats again, but certainly you're not going to rebook if it doesn't save you enough to do that. So that's a good question. Thanks for asking it. Okay, so here's a question about arriving and leaving from different cities. Do I recommend booking with a tour or by yourself? Again, I think it's a toss-up. It doesn't matter. Is the real answer to that. It doesn't matter if you're leaving from a different city and arriving from a different city. That makes no difference. The real difference is whether the advantages outweigh the disadvantages for you to book with a tour company versus booking on your own. And that is a personal decision, because some people want the ease of inclusion, so therefore they book with the tour company or a cruise provider, or they want the deal that they've gotten, the pricing that they've gotten. So it really does have to do with a personal choice. What this webinar hopefully has done for you is educated you in a way so that you understand why things are the way they are, right? So that you can make a better decision for yourself. This person says, I live in Canada. Is it better to get to a US airport to book a flight for a tour or cruise with me? No, doesn't have any effect that you live in Canada. North America is treated very much the same. Any of the cruise providers or tour operators that I deal with work in North America as a whole. So absolutely not. You don't have to fly to New York or Newark or anywhere to start a tour with me. You can fly from Toronto or wherever your departure city is, and it works out just the same. That I should say for anybody who thinks that just because I leave from Newark or Philadelphia that the whole tour does. That's not the case. When you come with me in a group tour, you leave from where you live. If you live in Minneapolis, you leave from Minneapolis. We meet at the destination. So if you're going to join me for a tour, Transylvania and the River Cruise, say, we will meet in Transylvania. The tour director will pick us up at the airport, and we will all come from our respectful cities, whether that's Chicago, Toronto, Minneapolis, Tampa, Philadelphia. We'll all meet in Transylvania together. The tour director will be there to meet us coming out of the airport, and we will all group together on the other side. So you never have to feel as though because you're on a group tour, you have to start from where the group starts. It's just not the case. Okay. So be comfortable with that. Is TSA PreCheck a good idea for a group flight with EF tours? So Rocco, I'll tell you that when I'm traveling with teenagers, which you are as well on this EF tour to Japan, I don't go through a different line. I stay with the kids. That's my choice, obviously. And if you're an adult and you want to go through the TSA PreCheck line, you don't have a kid that you want to stay with, by all means, you could do it. There will be many people who do. I just don't, because I'm the group leader. I am responsible for those kids, and I want to make sure that they get through security properly. But as an adult traveling alone on that tour, or not alone, but as an adult traveling without a kid on that tour, you can certainly use your TSA PreCheck. Absolutely. And yes, as soon as the flights are available in any tour group, you can add your TSA PreCheck. And whether that's even like a Lufthansa or a Air France or an Air Canada, I'm saying the ones that are on the target list for us that don't work well with us right now. Even if you're checking in the day of at the airport, I've literally checked into those flights and said, please add my PreCheck. Here's my global entry card, so that before I go through security, they're adding it to the boarding pass, right? And if that boarding pass gets printed out without the TSA PreCheck in the top corner, show it to her and say, or hit him and say, sorry, but I have TSA PreCheck. Can we get that added before I go up to security? So you want to make sure that it is connected to your flight, whether you're doing it at check-in or if you've been able to do it on the website far in advance. So somebody's asking about the kiosk and can you only use the kiosk if you are you doing carry-on? You can use a kiosk if you're checking luggage too. Many of the kiosks now print out the tags and they allow you to do a complete check-in, print out your luggage tag, keep your component, put the sticky part on the luggage, and then you take your luggage over to the conveyor belt where they will then put it through for you. But the kiosks are really good for seasoned travelers. If you feel comfortable and confident and you know what you're doing, by all means, use a kiosk if it's available. Oh, so Robin, you want to know what the brand of my travel vest is and where you can get it? My travel vest is called Scott E vest, like E like electronic. I don't know, maybe because it holds a lot of electronics, but I'll say that you get it from Scotty Vest, but I have a coupon if you'd like. I think I have a $20 or 20% off coupon, and I'll make a note to put it in the follow-up email so that people can have a coupon if they want it. Also, the other thing that I'll give you a coupon for if you care is my preferred luggage. And again, it's expensive, it's trendy, you don't need it by any means, but it does glide like butter in the airport. So if you really want a nice piece of luggage that you're going to have for a long time, the Away luggage is luggage that I use. I swear by it. And it's guaranteed for life and blah, 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 blah. But again, you don't need it. These two pieces that I just talked about, the Scotty vest and the Away luggage, they are definitely expensive. They are luxury items, in my opinion, but I do travel enough that they are very useful for me. So I have coupons for both of them, so I can give you them if you're interested in the in the follow-up email that you'll get tomorrow. Let's see. Oh, so Donna, you say, as I get older, I'm concerned about activity level. You know, what should you look for, or how should you become prepared? Absolutely. It is something to be mindful of. You know, I find that, generally speaking, on each tour that I go on, sadly, there's at least one person that, comes to the, realization that they are not as up for travel as they once were. And it's sad to see that, because, you know, we all want to be wanderers and we want to be adventurers. And when your mind is more adventurous than your body, or in some cases, your body is more capable than your mind, it's tough. So what I would suggest is practicing. And this sounds weird, but take yourself to a city that you're unfamiliar with, go on a day trip, navigate it, see how you do. Can you walk all day for, 8 hours, 10 hours on your feet? Can you go up and down stairs? Can you navigate from a train to a convention center and back again? Those are things that will easily prep you for a long haul trip. It's just like when you do a marathon. I've never run, so I don't know this, but I do understand that they do short simulated runs that give them the idea of longer ones. And I would suggest the same thing with travel, to get travel ready and to test yourself to see if you're really able to do this. And if you even enjoy this type of trip, you should absolutely test yourself. And then if you find that, a tour might just be too much for you, look at a cruise, look at a river cruise. Those are wonderful options where you have a lot more downtime, a lot more flexibility to sit out excursions, but enjoy destinations abroad and around the world. So there are options out there. You just have to be true to yourself and understand what your capabilities are. And the only way to know that is to test them, in my opinion. Let's see. Oh, the name of my hydration tabs again, Drip Drop. DRIP, DROP. I order them on Amazon, no big deal, but there are several out there. There's Drip Drop, there's Liquid IV, there's another one called Ultimate something. I just prefer the taste of Drip Drop, so I use them. I've used a bunch of them, and I like that taste the best, but only if I cut it in half. If I use half of a stick for one water bottle, then I can manage. How many bags will I take to Iceland? Someone wants to know. Probably I'll be taking a carry-on. I don't know. That's just what I do. I went to Alaska last year. I took a carry-on. So it depends what my flight path is. It depends what I have to take to Iceland. But generally speaking, it doesn't matter if I'm on a summer trip or a winter trip. It doesn't matter if I'm on a trip that's 7 days or 21 days. A carry-on works well for me. I just have learned how to pack, and I've learned how to work out of a carry-on. I like a small piece of luggage, and that's what I do. So that's probably what I'll do. That looks like all of the questions that have come in. I hope that, you know what, let me look at the chat real fast, just in case anybody threw any questions in the chat that I didn't address. Okay, so hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but if I did, obviously my email is on the screen, my phone number is on the screen, my website's on the screen. Certainly you can reach out to me at any time. And for all of you that did attend, I so appreciate it. I hope that the knowledge shared tonight helped you get a little bit more educated to make better decisions with your travels, and also to, if you're going to attack the flights on your own, find better ways to do the best you can with reserving them. But please know, in any case, if you want to talk about it, I'm here to talk about it. And I can certainly help you one-on-one to understand what's best for your situation with your particular bookings and your flight paths. So know that I'm here if you need me. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day or night for those of you who are in the evening, and enjoy. And I hopefully will see you on a virtual tour very soon or an in-person tour. So take care. Have a great night. I'll talk to you soon.